All right, a judge has gone ahead and dismissed the manslaughter charge in the Daniel Perry trial after the jury was hopelessly deadlocked on the issue, going back and forth on it for the better part of the afternoon. Ultimately, the judge dropping it. But, of course, it's not over. There is one remaining, and that is criminally negligent behavior on the part of Penny during that whole incident. That, of course, is in the eye of the beholder, and 12 jurors who clearly couldn't agree on the more serious manslaughter charge. Anyone's guess how they will rule when they come back on this lesser charge.
Racism is still alive and kicking in America. There's no other way to view this. Everyone has looked at the case, and those among you who say that Daniel Penny is innocent have racism and bias in your heart. If you look at the facts of this case, then you understand that Daniel Penny is guilty. But today, white supremacy got another victory. Today, the KKK, the Klansmen, the evil in America got another victory. They got that top charge dismissed. America shall continue to America and shall continue to place second-class status on black people.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the woke black activists losing their minds, crying white supremacy over the Daniel Penny trial not going the way that they think that it should go. And they're basically arguing that anybody who believes that Daniel Penny is innocent, that he's not guilty of manslaughter or negligent homicide against Jordan Neely, well, you're racist, right? You are a white supremacist, okay? If you believe that Daniel Penny is actually a hero who was protecting his fellow New York citizens from a rampaging homeless man on a train.
I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this is about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him. And the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that. Now, Mr. Penny may not feel like he's a hero, but there are a lot of people in this country that do feel like he's a hero, including some of the people on that train. And I do not think that Mr. Penny is responsible for Jordan Neely's death. In fact, there was a forensic pathologist by the name of Dr. Satish Chandra who came out and said, no. Jordan Neely, he died due to the combined effects of drugs, struggle, and schizophrenia. Okay, so I'm just saying, I personally think that in a situation like this, it is a damn shame that Mr. Penny has to even be on trial for what I believe to be self-defense. And this case has a whole lot of implications when it comes to self-defense, specifically in New York. And if this man is found guilty on any of these charges, then yeah, that means that self-defense essentially does not exist in New York City. Just like law and order, the rule of law, a fair criminal justice system, that also doesn't seem to exist in New York City, because I think low-key they're trying to rig this trial against Mr. Daniel Penny, because I know all of the headlines are saying that the manslaughter charge got dismissed. However, I think there's a little bit more going on here. And in order for you guys to understand exactly what is going on, you got to understand who's in charge of persecuting Daniel Penny, right? We have George Soros-backed Alvin Bragg's DAs who are going after Mr. Penny, and they're woke.
So I'm going to give you an example of something that I did with a recent case of mine, and this has never been done in my office. I had a murder case where the defendant did not intentionally kill the victim. He went into an ATM on the Upper West Side and tried to rob an individual. Unfortunately, it was an older individual. He was 86. And in the course of the robbery, he fell to the ground, and as a result, he died. This is, under the law, a felony murder, which is akin to intentional murder. However, when I first got the case, I learned, I took the time to learn about the defendant. And it was a strong case, so it wasn't about a whodunit. I knew immediately who did it. I could prove it. I could take it to trial that day and win it. But it wasn't about that. It was that the more I learned about the defendant and his life and the circumstances, the kinds of things that Jarrell was talking about, that one should take into account the trauma of that individual, I really felt incredibly sorry for him that he had gotten to that point in his life where he felt like there was no other choice but to commit this robbery.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? Par for the course when it comes to the woke prosecutors out in New York City, feeling bad for actual criminals, right? Actual criminals, oh, I feel bad for them, right? So it should come as no surprise that this woman was shocked when she found out that the jury was deadlocked on whether or not to find Daniel Penny guilty on the manslaughter charge.
Michelle is telling me that when the prosecutor read that note, she looked down and she grinned. It was not a grin of happiness. It was a grin of, I cannot believe I'm reading this. I just can't believe it. Well, what she couldn't believe is that the jury is deadlocked on count one. That is the more serious charge, manslaughter, which faces where Daniel Penny would face a term of up to 15 years in prison. As a result of them not being able to reach a unanimous verdict on the first charge, they are not allowed to move on to the second charge. So at this point, they are deadlocked.
Yeah, so on paper, for those who believe that Daniel Penny is innocent, it sounds good that that charge was dismissed. And it is kind of a good thing, except when you realize that, wait, the charge being dismissed because the jury could not really come to a conclusion about whether or not he is guilty or innocent, that just opens up the door for them to find him guilty on a lesser charge, which they now have to deliberate on. And a lot of people are now questioning the judge and whether or not the judge is trying to rig this trial against Daniel Penny so that they can find him guilty on something, right? Since they really couldn't agree to the first charge, the more serious charge. And if they can't agree to the more serious charge, then they can't move on to the second charge, right? Yeah, the dismissal of the first charge essentially just opens up the door for him to be found guilty on the second charge. And a lot of people are calling BS on this move here from the judge. So without further ado, let's get into this.
We're following breaking news in New York. The judge in the subway chokehold case has dismissed the second-degree manslaughter charge against Daniel Penny. The jury was allowed to leave for the day after saying twice it was deadlocked over that count. So jurors will return Monday to deliberate on the criminally negligent homicide charge against Penny. The prosecutors say Jordan Neely died after Penny put him in a chokehold on the train in 2023. He claims he was protecting himself and other subway riders and pleaded not guilty to all charges. CBS News legal contributor Jessica Levinson is back with us now to discuss this update. Jessica, what is the reasoning behind the judge's decision?
Well, this is what the prosecution asked for. They said it's clear that the jury, after asking them to do this twice, cannot come to a decision. And so the prosecution is saying we want to proceed with that lesser included charge, the criminally negligent homicide charge. For people watching at home wondering what's the difference is essentially manslaughter requires a higher level of knowledge, a higher type of state of mind, whereas negligence requires something less, requires something closer to there was an accident, but you can still find somebody criminally culpable. So in this case, what it means is that the prosecution has said, we don't want a full mistrial, which is what the defense wants. We want to proceed and ask the jury, what about criminal negligence, that lower included charge?
Can Penny ever be retried on the manslaughter charge?
I think at this point depends on exactly what the prosecution said to the judge when they said we want to dismiss this case. I think there's a difference between can they, which I believe the answer, if they decided to dismiss it, it depends on how they dismissed it, but probably not, versus will they. And I think the answer to that is they likely would not. Again, based on their willingness to move forward with the criminal negligence. I want to be clear that I think the promise here by the prosecution of we're willing to drop the manslaughter if, judge, you say we can proceed to the criminal negligence case indicates that they're not going to refile on manslaughter.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. Basically, what she's saying is that, well, the prosecutors said, since we cannot get the jury to decide on manslaughter, which, by the way, at the same time, they also were deliberating about the lesser charge as well, too. So they say, you know what? Well, just stop thinking about that. Stop thinking about the most serious one, okay? And just think about the lesser one, because it seems as if we're not going to get them on the most serious one, and we don't want a mistrial, right? We don't want a whole mistrial, which is what the defense wants. We want to actually just get them on something, right? We just want to get them on something, okay, and go from there. And the judge says yes, right, that they will dismiss the charges and that they should just consider the lesser charge, right? Almost as if they're basically telling the jury, hey, you guys better come to a decision on this one, right? You need to go ahead and decide on this one, okay? You need to go ahead and just make a decision on this one, right? And again, a lot of people are looking at this and saying that, yeah, this is sketchy, right? This is kind of some BS.
How long do you think the judge will make the jury deliberate if they continue to be deadlocked on this lesser charge?
However long the judge feels. It's totally in his discretion. The defense will object, but legally the judge can give them sufficient time, maybe read them another Allen charge where they say, we are counting on you. We spent a lot of money and time, please. But they've done that already. I don't think that this judge is respecting the jurors' beliefs, and I also think it reeks of desperation from the prosecution.
If Penny is found guilty on this lesser charge, what kind of sentencing might he face?
Well, the maximum technically is 4 years, but I think the max in any criminal case should be reserved for the worst of the worst. It should be reserved for people who have reoffended. I don't think that he deserves that kind of time. This charge that they're deliberating on would be for somebody who's driving recklessly, they're staring at their phone, they're speeding, it's a willful and wanton disregard of human life, and they wind up killing someone. That's not plausibly analogous to what this guy did in these circumstances.
What conversations do you think Penny's lawyers are having right now?
Well, they're thrilled that the first charge is gone, but they're going, man, I can't believe the judge is sending him back. It almost reeks of coercion. The judge is saying, go back, look at the lesser charge. But we did. So what does this mean? I think it's scary. I've been there. Jake, I've been there where they take 4 days. They're going to take another day. It is agonizing.
It sounds to me like you're suggesting that the judge is basically telling the jury, not in so many words, but suggesting you really should convict him on this lesser charge.
I wouldn't go that far because the judge is doing his job, and I'm not even saying that he's done anything illegal. What I'm saying is that it reeks, the image of what it looks like is Well, wait, you've already deliberated on that lesser charge. The prosecutors dismissed the main charge. So I'm going to send you back there and I'm going to have you consider that lesser charge again. I'm just saying that there's a fair argument to make from the defense that it almost implies that the judge is suggesting there may be something to this lesser charge. That's all I'm saying.
The judge told the jury to go home and try to think about something else over the weekend, not this case. Is that even possible for a jury?
Absolutely not if you're human and not a robot. Picture a tiger on a unicycle with a Nazi helmet juggling balls. Okay, wait. Forget about that image. Don't think about it. Come on, they're obsessed. They're going to be thinking about it. They'll probably be talking it over with friends and family who've watched the media. They're told not to, but they are human. They do it.
Yeah, so that's what I think too, right? I definitely think that the judge is trying to push the jury in a certain direction, right? Basically saying, hey, you should definitely convict them on the second one, right? You guys couldn't decide on the first, so now you should convict them on the second one. And that's what's happening here, okay? Because they're desperate, okay? They're desperate to try to get a man that is innocent because they want to make a statement, right? And this is how the law works in New York, right? Specifically New York City. I'm not sure why anybody at this point would go to New York City, especially for an extended amount of time, right? I mean, that place, they've shown that, yeah, I mean, it's a banana republic. I mean, between Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, I mean, that whole legal system in New York is just rotten to the core. Right? Rotten to the core. And they're overt about it. Right? They're in your face about the fact that they have weaponized the legal system for their political ideology. Right? We've seen this with President Trump. We've seen them when they go after companies who don't want to get on board with the woke agenda. Now you look at this Daniel Penny case in which if this guy is found guilty, yeah, there is no such thing as self-defense in New York City at all. Right? It's just not a thing. I'm not sure why anybody would go there, especially for an extended amount of time. You can't defend yourself. If a criminal threatens to attack you, or if they do attack you, bruh, you better not try to defend yourself. And it just so happens that you take that person's life, you're the one that's going to be punished for it, okay? You're the one that's going to be punished. And the criminals that commit crimes, yeah, they don't really go after them that much, right? They're soft on those guys, but they're tough on everybody else. They're tough on law-abiding citizens. They're tough on heroes. They're tough on the former president of the United States, right? The legal system in New York is ass backwards. And I think what you're seeing right here is just another example. It's just another example. These people should be ashamed of themselves, right? New York City is a complete and total mess. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully this jury has the cojones to do the right thing, which is to find Daniel Penny not guilty. Let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.